Good morning. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually by electronic means through WebEx Webinar, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx Webinar, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Today, Committee of Adjustment is offering attendees the option to appear by video. Those attendees that have registered in advance to attend by video will be temporarily upgraded to panelists when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5 minutes allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure you include your name, address, and email address because the committee and the Toronto Local Appeal Body will be sending notifications and appeal updates by mail. If you do not agree with our decision, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body or, in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. Today, I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching the 5 minutes. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice are informed of the changes. Then, individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Do we have a motion to confirm the minutes of the last meeting?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be the June 8th hearing.
Yes, Peter?
Motion to confirm the minutes.
All right, do we have a seconder? Joanna? All in favor? Minutes are confirmed. Are there any declarations of interest of panel or staff or items in the morning time slot? Yes, Joanne?
Item number 16, I have property in the immediate neighborhood.
Okay, just a minute. Okay, that's Inwood Avenue.
Yes.
Okay. I understand there are no deferral requests for the morning slot. Are there any files to be closed, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer?
Through you, Mr. Chair, see none for today.
Okay. Now we will proceed to number 126 Glencrest Boulevard. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing one-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear basement addition with a rear walkout, a rear one-story addition with a rear deck, a complete second-story addition, and an attached garage. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from Ravine and Natural Feature Protection, Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, and we have reports from Urban Forestry and Development and Planning. Okay, Nikita Makarski.
Good morning. Hello.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, how are you?
We're good. Could we have your name and your address, sir, for the record?
Yeah, sure. My name is Nikita Matsarski, and I'm speaking on behalf of the owner of the property located at 26 Glencrest Boulevard.
Okay. All right. Panel, do we need a presentation? Okay.
Actually, we would like to defer our application. The reason for that is that we have an additional variance we didn't list on the waiver.
Okay. So that.
Like, we fully understand that this is our mistake, and also, if that is possible, I would want to ask you to defer our application, to reschedule it for the next hearing date, because we've been struggling with this project for a while, and we were supposed to start the construction works last year, and if we defer like this application further, we won't be able to start this year, and it's just a matter of time for us. And if it's possible to reschedule it for the next available hearing, we would very appreciate that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the next available hearing would be sometime in September.
Yeah. I'm sorry, sir, but that's, we have lots of people. At some of the other committees in Scarborough, at Etobicoke, they can schedule you for the next hearing, but we can't. So are you still need a deferral because you forgot a variance, correct?
Yeah, we need a deferral.
Okay, thank you. Panel, do we have a motion for a deferral? Yes, Peter?
Thanks, Chair. Given the fact that the applicant is missing a variance, I think there's no other choice, so I move a motion to defer the application.
Do we have a seconder? Joanne? All in favor? You have your deferral, sir. Thank you. Aaron? Aaron? Yeah, could you raise your left hand when you're voting for something, because there's something on the screen blocking your right hand. I can't see it. Okay, so let's move on to item number 2, which is 129, 131 Kenilworth. Purpose of this application is to convert the existing 2-story, 4-unit detached apartment building into a 2-story, 6-unit detached apartment building by converting the existing basement into 2 dwelling units. With this application, you have materials submitted by the applicant, 4 form letters in support and opposition from 147 Kenilworth. Alexander Nitsopoulos. Do we have,
Alexander, you've been unmuted. Alexander, you've been unmuted. You might have to unmute yourself on your device. Did you call him? Alexander, you've been unmuted on your phone. So if you can try to unmute yourself on your phone. Through you, Mr. Chair, we called the agent, but he is in the attendance, but we can't hear him. So
Maybe, through you, Mr. Chair, maybe we should move on to item 3 and then come back to this item.
yes,
okay.
okay. 201 Brunswick Avenue. The purpose of this application is to permit a front 1-story addition to the attached garage of the existing 3-story detached building. With this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant. We have correspondence from planning and correspondence in opposition from 199 Brunswick Avenue. Nikita Makarski.
Yeah, hi, it's me again.
Yeah, can we
Yeah,
have
my
your-
name is
can we
Nikita
have-
Matsarsky. Yeah,
Can we have your
my
name and
name
your
is
address again for the record?
my name is Nikita Matsarsky, and I'm speaking on behalf of the owner of the property located at 201 Brunswick Avenue.
Okay, so we need a brief presentation because there is some opposition.
Okay, sure. We have 3 variances requested. The first one is the minimum side yard setback. According to the bylaw, it has to be 0.45 meters, and we have 0 meters. But there was an existing metal garage which has the same setback of 0 meters. And also we spoke to the owner, and the owner didn't have any objections on that. They only asked for several conditions, and there was an agreement between the owners, and it was signed. So we believe that it shouldn't cause any problems, at least from the side of the owner. The second variance is the landscaping. A minimum of 50% of the front yard must be landscaping, and in our case, it's 47.8%. And also, a minimum of 75% of the required front yard landscaping must be soft landscaping. In our case, it's 58%. We believe that this is not very significant, and we also worked with the planning department, and they didn't have any problems with this variance too. And the last variance is...
Mr. Makarski, My notice says 54.8% is soft landscaping. Is that correct, or is it 58?
Um, we have, on the waiver, we have 58%.
So, Mr. Chair, I noticed in an email that they said they were amending variance 3 to 58.
Which notice went out?
We also applied for the zoning notice and it had the same variances, but we decided to go with the waiver.
Okay, so it's 58, all right? That's fine.
Yeah, let's go with 58,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, you indicated there were 3 variances. I have 5, so can you go on to number 4? Or do you have 5?
Um,
4 and 5 deal with parking spaces.
yeah, it's parking, but on the waiver, it's like variance, like we stated it as the one variance, but yeah, it has actually 2. So the parking space must have a minimum length of 5.6 meters, and we have 5.18. And also the next variance is the minimum required parking space inside the garage with walls on both sides. It must have a minimum width of 3.2 meters, and we have 2.6. And we're actually improving these variances. That was the reason why we submitted this application, because originally we had 4.57 meters, and we're improving that because the garage was too small.
Okay, but you're able to open the doors on a car at 2.6 meters in width?
I believe it depends on the car, and owner is aware of this, and we spoke to him, and he said he doesn't have any problems with that.
Okay. Panel, do you have any questions? All right. Mike Milando?
Hello.
Hello,
Hi, can you hear me now?
we can hear you. Can we have your name and your address for the record, please?
Yeah, Mike Milando at 199 Brunswick Avenue.
Okay, would you tell us what your concerns with this application are?
My concerns have been addressed. They were the 5 submitted in the document. That's been signed by the owner, so I have no objection.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so, Mr. McCarskey, we don't have to come back to you. Panel, do you have any questions, comments, or do we have a motion? Yes, Joanne?
I just actually, that went by so quickly. I just want clarification. So it's still variance number 1 in the notice remains the same. Variance number 2, is it changing to, it stays the same. Variance number 3 is going to 58% soft landscaping.
As I understand it, yes.
And are variance 4 and 5 still necessary? I don't know why we're talking about 3 variances. That's where I'm confused.
Yeah, no, I think he was mistaken because he dealt with the parking as one.
Okay.
But the same, he talked about it as the same as on our notice.
Okay, so the 58% soft landscaping, does he have the meter squared for that? That, I didn't see that in the notice, in the email.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the waiver states 6.5 square meters.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. That's clarifies.
Okay. Do we have any comments? Do we have a motion? Yes, Nimrod?
I'd like to move a motion. I believe the variances are minor in nature, and so my motion is to approve the variances with no conditions and as amended.
All right, and Joanne, you seconded. All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you. Can we go back to number 2? Did you We haven't got them yet? Okay, we'll move on to number 4. Number 4 is 145 Essex Street. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 3-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear walkout at the basement and second floor to create 2 secondary suites. The altered dwelling will provide a total of 3 units. On this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from planning, transportation services, and correspondence in support. I don't understand the correspondence in support because, well, I guess this is a tenanted building. Yes, there's support from 2 tenants at 145 Essex Street and a 4-signature petition in support by people on Essex, other people on Essex Street. Mr. Mazzatelli?
Yes?
Yes. Can we have your name and your address for the record, sir?
Yes, Joseph Mazzatelli at 608 Oriole Parkway. I'm the architect.
Okay. I don't think we need a presentation on this, sir. Do you have anything you want to say before we go into committee?
Mr. Chair, I did have a question.
But just, who are you?
This is Nimrod Salomon. Mr. Chairman, I've got a
okay.
question to the applicant.
Yeah, okay, but just a minute, Nimrod. Let's see if he has anything to say, and then you can ask him a question.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Mazzatelli, do you have a question? Do you have anything to say to the committee before we...
Well, only simply that all the renovations are internal. And for example, a detached house would be allowed 2 second units. And the tenants do not have cars, so we don't need the parking issue. And we have supported the neighbors, and we do not have any objection from the planner. So I hope that you approve this.
Okay, all right. Nimrod, do you have a question?
Yeah. There were 3 committee of adjustment variances, applications that were approved last year in 2021. So I'm just wondering what is different between this, what's before us now, and what was approved last year.
No, I'm sorry. This is the only one that there was nothing last year that I know of.
Okay. Or is this, sorry, what are we on item 2 then, or on
We're on item 4.
4? Yeah, so on item
But
4, I'm just looking there. It says under previous decisions.
Nimrod, I think they're for examples, different addresses.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Any further questions, comments, or do we have a motion? Joanne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what's being proposed here is indeed minor. There'd be no impact. I'm not concerned about the parking given the location. And I would move a motion to approve the application with no conditions.
All right, we have a seconder. Peter, all in favor? You have your approval. Thank you. Number 2, no go yet? Aren't you, it's good? Okay. We'll go back to number 2. 129, 131 Kenilworth, Alexandra Nitsopoulos.
Alexandra, you've been unmuted.
Technology knowledge. I would end up being kind of that.
Alexandra, you've been unmuted.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you. Can we have your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Alexandra Nitsopoulos and owner of 129 and 131 Kenilworth Avenue.
Okay,
And my husband Louis is here as well.
okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, it was on that one.
Can we have
Hello?
you?
Hello?
I guess she can't hear us. Oh, okay.
Oh, I can hear you now. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh.
You've introduced yourself for the record. Would you please proceed with your presentation because there is some opposition?
Sure. My husband and I, we purchased 129, 131 Kenilworth about 6 years ago. And at that time, it already had basement existing apartments. And they've been there over 20, 30 years, according to the previous owners. We always had intentions of renovating and legalizing those basement apartments. So when our tenants left about a year ago, we started this process, and along with renovating the other units. The beaches, it's in a great location, just steps away from the 24-hour streetcar on Queen, and plenty of bicycle paths to get around. So we're here because we want to use those existing north and south side entrances that have always been used in the past, and they're the same ones that are used for fire exit over the years, to create 2 new legal basement apartments.
Okay, so this is just a matter of legalizing what's already existing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, Amelie Glockner and Dirk Glockner?
Emily,
Can you
you've
hear
been
me?
unmuted. Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can we have your
Okay,
name and
great.
your address, please?
Yes, my name is Emily Glockner, and I live at 147 Kenilworth Avenue.
Okay, can you tell us what your concerns about this application are?
Yes, so I'm not in support of basement apartment. We live 3 houses north of the proposed work, and we've lived in our house for 14 years. And our street is well known for lots of floods, lots of water issues. The water table is extremely high. We usually have a flood almost every year. In the letter that I attached, I showed the picture of the latest one in December. And often the water will get as high as our knees, and at one time it's actually gotten as high as my waist. So we are at the very bottom of Kenilworth, and as well as this proposed basement. The street itself used to be a river, and that's why there's Upper Kenilworth on a cliff to the west and Waverley to the east. And so our houses from 125 Kenilworth to around 149 are at the bottom of the valley. And residents in this area have had significant water problems. So any work underpinning digging with the existing basements in those units, any work that needs to make it more livable, it is possible it's going to directly impact our neighbors and our home as well, given how high the water table is. So, for example, we have tried to dig down in our basement, and we've hit the water table, so it's not possible to go downwards. So we've had to build upwards. We did a full renovation 4 years ago, and we were not able to do anything to the basement, so we had to add an addition on the second floor. So this is definitely a concern. We also have had sewage problems because of the water in the piping and everything under our houses. It is just so close to the water table, and all that kind of work is very close to the basements on our street. So we're really concerned about putting extra pressure on the system. I think it would cause a lot of issues for not only us, for other residents as well.
Okay, panel, do you have any questions? Okay, Ms. Nitsopoulos,
Yes.
perhaps you
Yes.
want to, is your engineer available? Perhaps he should speak to this issue.
Sure. I will let Musa speak, but we have contacted Rock Bottom Underpinning, who is a leader in the industry for over 35 years.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Committee. My name is Musa Aida, 55 Village Center Place. I'm a structural engineer.
Okay,
And
sir, could you just hold on, because Ms. Nitsopoulos was speaking.
Sure.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Okay, hi. I'll just finish up. So I did reach out to, they have been on site. They have reviewed the plans. They have engineers they deal with, and they did write me a letter that they have no concerns with the water table or with the scope of work, and they feel that it is achievable. I've attached their letter and their background. I was a little late. But so they didn't have any concerns with it, and I explained everything.
Yes, do you have flooding?
No, we didn't have flooding, and we had our tenants for 6 years in the basement when we owned the property before they left.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Ayade?
Musa?
Yes. Go. You go ahead. Just give us your name and your address for the record, please.
I think we're still on, the owners.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Unmute. You have to unmute.
Musa,
Mr.
you've been
Chair, I'm
unmuted.
here. Yes, my name is Musa Aida, and I'm a structural engineer. I prepared the application and the drawings for this. In regards to the underpinning and the high water table, structurally and engineering-wise, it's possible to provide widespread footings and overcome this issue. In regards to the safety of the next adjacent property, a shoring engineer will be involved to design a shoring between the two properties, and in order to provide the required underpinning and the required stability for the adjacent property and the 131-129 property. So structurally, there is no issue of the high water table.
All right. Thank you. Panel, do you have any questions? Okay, but I just want to, so we're taking it into committee. I just want to say that this isn't really something that we are mandated to deal with. This will be dealt with by building, but I just wanted to have it on the record for the neighbors to understand that the owners have sought advice, and their advice is that it's okay, and so whether they're assured by that or not, I don't know. But in any event, do we have any comments, or do we have a motion, panel? Peter?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think apart from the water table issue, I think the variances being requested are very minor, and particularly they're basically reinforcing an existing situation, and I think this is a positive change for the site. I think it's desirable. So I move approval with no conditions, or sorry, yeah, no conditions.
Do we have a seconder? Nimrod, all in favor? Have your approval, thank you. Now, number 5. (120) Sheridan Avenue. The purpose of this application is to legalize and to maintain the rear third-story addition, including the reconstructed deck and the one-story ancillary structure, a tool shed located in the rear yard. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have 17 form letters in support. Okay. David Footman.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Footman, can we have your name and your address, please?
Yes, good morning. My name is David Footman, 119 Front Street, Colborne.
David, you've been promoted as a panelist, so you can turn your video on because you registered to use that option.
I will try that now. Can you see me or hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't.
Hello?
Hear you.
Well, that doesn't matter. I think if you can hear me. No.
Yeah.
Allow. I've allowed something. All right. Hi.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Good morning. Hi.
All right, we can hear you, and we understand. We've got your information. There's really no opposition. There's someone in support, so I think we'll we'll go to that person, and then I may come back to you.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, Lou Wren.
Well, if we have 18 letters of support, we probably all right without him.
All right,
Through you, Mr. Chair, Lou Wren is in the attendance. We're just having difficulties unmuting them.
Okay, so.
We can give them a call if you want.
Yeah.
Are they
Lou Wren, if you can hear us.
in support or in opposition?
All right, Mr. Footman, would you just hold on till we try and get this speaker? But
Okay.
they're in support, so.
Lou Wren, we're currently calling you on the phone number you have provided with your registration. So just pick up the phone and you'll be able to speak through your device.
Initialized by the customer you are calling. The customer you are calling.
All right, so we can't get a hold of that person. Okay, Mr. Footman, I don't think we need a presentation. I'm gonna take this into committee. Is there anything you want to say before we go into committee?
No, I just thank you for your time and happy solstice.
All right, thank you. Pat, Joanne, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to understand why there was no permit hold on this in advance. In addition to that, the lot coverage for the shed seems excessive. Can you give me some information with respect to the need for that and whether or not that percentage of coverage and a lot line to lot line accessory building is common in the area? Thank you.
Mr. Footman?
David, I think you're muted on your device.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes. So to the first point regarding the permits, I do not know anything about that. I got involved when they had to get the variances. Regarding the size of the shed, it is only slightly bigger than the neighboring shed. And it also, we still are providing 29.5 meters squared of landscaping as opposed to the 32 meters squared required. So that's a very small variance. Lots like this, I could probably get a laneway suite or a garden suite, which would be a lot bigger. But this is they don't have a garage, so their tools and pots and stuff. Most people, I think their garages are half car, half stuff. So it's not a very big shed, and it's in keeping with a neighbor's shed. So that's my response to the concerns.
Thank you. In the photos that were submitted in the rear yard, the photos show hardscaping, but your drawing shows soft landscaping. Are those hardscapes being removed?
If it's if that's required for the variances, of course. Yes,
Well,
this is
okay,
exactly.
so the application suggests that you're only deficient by 4% on the soft landscaping. Is that only deficient by 4%, recognizing the hardscaping that's in place, or is it?
No,
the
that
will be
hardscaping will be removed to provide the soft landscaping.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Do we have any comments? Do we have a motion? Yes, Nimrod?
There are quite a few variances before us, but I think overall they are minor in nature. And so I would move approval of the variances with no conditions.
All right, do we have a seconder? Yes, Aaron, seconded. All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you. Number 6, 361 Euclid Avenue. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 3-story detached dwelling by constructing 2 and 3-story rear additions, a front covered porch and rear first, second, and third floor terraces, also to construct a 2nd story above the detached garage in order to install a laneway suite. This garage is located in the rear yard abutting the laneway. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and 9 form letters in support. Mr. Mandel.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so can we have your name and your address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Drew Mandel. I'm the advocate for the applicant, and our offices are at 134 Peter Street in Toronto.
Okay. And so panel, do we need a presentation? There's no opposition. Yes, Nimrod? Do you want to, Nimrod, did you want a presentation?
I believe variance 5 is being revised. If we can just get a clarification on that.
Yes, thank you. I was going to bring that to your attention. We have reduced the variance, or I guess it's better put that we increased the soft landscaping and the percentage of soft landscaping area to 59%. And that we did receive a revised zoning notice, and we did submit that to the committee. And that's what you should have in front of you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, what is that in square meters, Drew?
Yes, it is 9.73 square meters.
Are there any other changes?
There are none, no.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, panel? Okay, any comments, or do we have a motion? Yes, Joanne?
Thank you. I think that what's being proposed, in my opinion, is indeed minor. It's not out of character with the neighborhood. With the improvement to the front yard landscaping variance, I think that this is a supportable application. And if my colleagues have no further comment, I'd be prepared to move a motion to approve the application as amended with no conditions.
All right, do we have a seconder? Peter, all in favor? Have your approval, thank you. Number 7. 1 1072 to 1076 Queen Street West. And the purpose of this application is to join the two existing buildings by performing interior renovations and constructing a rear two-story addition and a full third-story addition with front and rear third-story terraces. With this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant, correspondence from Planning of Transportation Services, and a report from Community Planning, correspondence in interest or concern from Two Fenning, and opposition from opposition from Two Fenning as well. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Michael, you've been unmuted and made a panelist, so if you want to turn your video on, you can do so.
Yes. There I am. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Michael Taylor. I'm a partner at Taylor Smythe Architects. I'm the agent for the owners. Our offices are at 245 Davenport Road in Toronto.
All right, can we have your presentation, Mr. Taylor, because there is opposition?
Yes, please. Could I have you open the CA Plans Revised June 2015 document in the Application Information Center supporting documentation, please? It's the ninth one down. And could you go to A 1.03, which is the fourth page of that? Yes, that's it there, the bird's eye view. Okay, so our proposed project consists of two currently derelict two-story heritage buildings. And as you've heard, we're planning on renovating the heritage facade and doing the work that was mentioned. We're looking to do all commercial uses for this occupancy. I'll go through the 7 variances quickly. Variances 1, 2, and 3 relate to the floor space index and parking, for which we're seeking additional FSI for non-residential use and a variance to allow no parking spaces within the building. It's a very small lot, 462 square meters, so there's no way to fit parking in the building. And now could you scroll down to A 2.03, the ground floor plan? It's the ninth page. That one there, 2.03, yes. Yes, 2.03. So variances 4 and 5 relate to the rear yard setback from the center line of the laneway and the setback from the lot line across the lane. We're proposing to align our building with the new adjacent building at 1070 Queen, just east of that. And also you'll see that our building is well set back from 1068 and 1080 Queen Street along the laneway as well. Transportation Services has signed off on a proposed rear wall setback as well as the proposed 0 parking spaces, just to note that. And variance number 6 is a platform at the front wall must be located above 3 stories. Our front terrace is located at the 3rd story due to our setting back the 3rd floor addition from the existing 2-story heritage facade. Based on this, Heritage has given the project their blessing. And finally, variance number 7, could you go to drawing A 5.02, which is the 20th drawing? Okay, and yes, and zoom in on that. So this variance number 7 relates to the providing a 45-degree angular plane along the rear yard setback. The red dashed profile that you see there denotes the current zoning. We're proposing to slightly penetrate into the angular plane with our 3rd floor for that. We had many discussions with the city planning staff about the project, in particular related to the rear yard setback and the angular plane. both for this current zoning in red and also the proposed West Queen Street West planning study, which you can see in blue. As a result of these conversations, I just want to note that we reduced the number of stories we're asking for from 4 down to 3. After the public hearing notice was issued, we were contacted by an additional planner who requested that we set back the 3rd floor at the rear by 1.5 meters that you can see there, as well as setting back the terrace guard railing by 0.9 meters from the rear wall and making the railing opaque, all of which we agreed to do. And if you go to the next page, please. It's not there, sorry. Okay. Well, if you stay on that drawing that we were showing, if you were to draw an angular 45-degree angular plane with the new proposed zoning, you see that we're well below that. Now, I'd like to note that we did have a meeting with the neighbor who owns the house at 2 Fenning Street, directly across the laneway. We shared shadow studies with her to show our proposed building's effect on her property, both with our current proposal and if we were to build to the proposed new zoning. And we showed her that in the summer we will not be shadowing her yard. Those are included, those shadow studies in supporting material. And also of note was her concern that we're building further into the lane than what's existing. But in fact, our proposal is set back about 2 feet from where an existing building on our site is to be demolished. So we're not impacting access to the parking space on our property in any way. In fact, we're making it better. So in closing, I just want to say we're proposing a building that we believe will enhance Queen Street in a respectful way by maintaining the scale of the street. And we're choosing not to build the maximum allowable. And we've been working in good faith with the Planning Department, Heritage and Transportation to address all of their concerns.
So, Mr. Taylor, this change that was made after the notice was sent out, does that change any variances?
No.
Okay. All right. Joan, panel, do you have any other questions? Okay. Joan Ruja?
Ruja. Yep.
Sorry.
No problem. So, yep, my name's Joan Ruja. I live at 2 Fennings. And as was just mentioned, one of our initial concerns was about not having access to the parking space. That appears to not be an issue. Yeah, as long as, I guess there's no, there's going to be no sort of first floor back terrace or patio on the first floor, because that would impact our ability to use our parking space. Also, we have concerns around what's going to happen during the construction period, because there have been we've been having construction for 2 years at 1070, and because
Right.
there's
But
really
we have, as a committee, we have no mandate, and we can't do anything about the construction. That has to be dealt with by building.
so there's nothing, I guess, but the concern is around like having workers using up.
I understand your concerns, but we can't do, but we don't have any mandate to deal with that.
Okay, and then the other concern was just around the back-facing third floor patio in terms of our privacy, because it would be looking directly into our backyard and potentially into the second and third floor windows.
Okay. Panel, any questions? No. Okay. Mika Anderson, Zachary Muravrima.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Please note it. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi. Yeah, so I'm Mika Anderson. My husband is Zachary, and we do also live at 2 Fenning Street. We've been here for over 10 plus years. Zach is here, but just for timing, I'll be speaking on our behalf. And just so you can picture our residence, the southern side of 2 Fennings runs along the entire north end of the 1072 to 1076 proposed development. So we will be the residents most impacted by this new building. And I will say just the framing of the site as a derelict, I think, is a bit misleading. It used to have a number of residential units in there with lots of families and tenants who were then kicked out when the building was sold. So just wanted to flag that. So we occupy the second and third stories of the residential house with west and south facing windows that look towards the back of the 1072 lot. We also have a back second floor deck. That's our outdoor space. Also looking onto the 1072 lot, and we do have that shared parking spot at the west end of the property. So the variances that are being requested are highly concerning, and we feel strongly that none of these are minor in nature. If this commercial building is allowed to proceed as is, it will have a negative impact on our quality of life as local residents. And we feel strongly that the proposal does not maintain the general intent and purpose of the city's bylaws or the official plan. One concern we mentioned in our written submission is to do with the requirement for them to have 11 parking spots. They're not going to have a single one. We only have a shared parking spot at 2 Fennings, so we do rely on nearby parking availability. For them to have no parking as an office building will put a lot of additional pressures on our on-street parking, already stretched to the max due to the popularity of the West Queen West neighborhood. There is a small parking lot, but it's consistently packed. Plus, they won't be providing any accessible parking spot as required, and as an office building, I just feel, this is discriminatory. But one of our biggest concerns is to do with the request to build closer to us. I get that they could have maybe potentially gone higher. It looks really high to me. It's about 3.5 stories to my regular person eyes. But this request to be closer to the laneway property line and closer to the 2 Fenning Street lot line than is currently permitted is problematic. And yes, the current 1-story, very tiny shed, it reaches out a little bit further, but that's 1 story, and there's no windows there, and it's a very discreet and not the same thing. So again, we feel this variance request to be closer is far from minor. And we would argue that they've not been acting in good faith. They've been updating the plans at the last minute. The meeting they had with their landlord, Donna Hollander, only happened after the deadline. There's been no other communication with us as tenants. I mean, we only heard about it from our landlord at the last minute. We don't always walk on Queen because it's fairly busy down there. So again, just wanted to flag that as well. Now, the depth restrictions currently outlined by the bylaws, they're in place to create buffer zones between commercial and residential properties. And that's our concern, that we're losing that buffer. Given the request to build closer, then to lose that buffer, the proposal for so many north-facing windows and balconies, which would face us in our home, becomes very problematic. With all those rows of windows, especially across the back second floor and third floors, we'll have potentially dozens, of office workers watching us in our home and in our private, personal outdoor areas. Depending on shifts, we're concerned about the impact of commercial lighting emitting 24 hours a day. We live, CAMH around the corner, and they have their lights on all night long. So again, this would negatively impact our lives and our residential spaces. And there is now, again, this was a last minute addition, a new balcony that's been added to the back of the 3rd floor. So again, office workers right there looking into our windows, onto our private outdoor spaces. Plus, there's no way of knowing what type of business will move into this space once built. That could be a nightclub, it could be a bar. So by asking for a variance to build closer to us, these design features all start to have way more impact on the quality of our lives, in particular our privacy. So thank you for hearing our objections. And yeah, thank you for the time today.
All right, thank you. Dana Hollander.
Hollander, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, and I live at 379 Charlton Avenue West in Hamilton, Ontario. I am the owner of number 2 Fenning Street. The 2 tenants have been speaking from there as well. And so again, we are the adjoining property. I thank the applicant for meeting with me upon my request to clarify some things, and I thank them for clarifying especially that our parking spot will not be affected by the new construction. But I'll echo my tenants' comments that there could be problems arising from encroaching more into the laneway than allowed by zoning, and that as a result of that, the back patio and the windows could mean that people can see into the private spaces of our building, and it could lead also to noise depending on the use of the back patio, that balcony. I'm also concerned about the possibility of light pollution, which Mika Anderson also mentioned, and wondered whether some safeguards could be put in place, like required shades that would in fact be drawn after dark or anything like that. I'd be looking for some sort of guarantees or promises from the applicant in that respect. I know we're not supposed to mention construction blockage, but it is an aspect of all construction, and I hadn't heard any. I mean, I was asking for some guarantees that we would be able to be in contact with the builders when the time comes. I also wanted to just flag something, which is that on the plans that we were shown again now, that blue outline for the West Queen West planning study that you make reference to, my understanding is that for the moment that has been struck down in some city forum, and so I don't know that they're actually in place. Maybe they were once projected as desirable by some body, and maybe they will come back, but I think that their status is uncertain. So yes, just echoing also what Mika Anderson said about a buffer zone between commercial and residential due to the plans encroaching more onto the laneway than is currently allowed by the zoning rules. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions, panel? Okay, Vera Frankel.
Hi Vera, you've been unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm going to defer to my colleague Rick Amos, who is in a highly informed position. I can simply say that looking at these plans.
All right, can we have your name and your address for the
Oh,
record?
I'm so sorry. Vera Frankel, 1088 Queen Street West. Looking at Mr. Taylor's plans, I can just express dismay at the breach, in my view, of the West Queen West principles of construction and aesthetic and use. It's like a blister on the block with all the problems that it's creating with invasion of privacy and absence of light controls and noise. It is really a serious breach of everything that matters for those of us who've lived here, in my case, over 20 years. We are already dealing with problems from the bar at 1090, the potential of renting to businesses that could destroy the quality of life for everyone nearby is huge. And I'm expressing my dismay. That's all I have to say at the moment.
All right, thank you. Any questions, panel? Mr. Taylor?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, well, first of all, I just want to address the statement that we updated plans at the last minute. The updating of the plans was in fact to set back the third story at the back of the building at the request of the planning department, not us trying to change things at the last minute. So we were actually reducing the amount of space that we were asking for and how much we were impacting the laneway. As far as parking goes, this is a very small building, and there's no feasible way to accommodate parking and still have any usable space. I don't know what to say about the way we're going to be destroying the neighborhood here. Respectfully, this is a small project. It's a 3-story building. We're adding 1 story to what's there, and it's already allowed for commercial use. So I can't really respond to that. In terms of the views that the workers or occupants of this proposed building will have towards the back, I mean, you need windows on the back of a building, regardless of whether we're located, where we're proposing or set back a little bit more. There will still continue to be windows on the back, and again, this is a very small project. We can't commit to having blinds that come down at a certain time, but we're not CAM-H, and there will always be windows on the back of buildings. So I think this project is very respectful, and it's only, as I mentioned before, cutting very slightly into the angular plane of the current zoning. So I would, we could have built taller, even with the existing zoning. We could have built taller, and we've chosen not to do so. We've taken the high road with this project to do something that is very, very, very simple and clean, and I believe it's in the interests of the City of Toronto to promote this type of project, which isn't out there to try to get all sorts of variances to get, more height and more area.
All right. Panel, any questions? Okay, thank you. Take it into committee. Any comments?
Sorry, Chair, I just have one question.
Yeah.
With respect to the revision as requested by planning and the step-in now at the 3rd story, in the original proposal, you were content to not have any terrace at the back. Just wondered whether or not that terrace is from the overlook perspective, do you think the opacity suggested by planning will address the concerns of the neighbors?
It's not shown opaque here, obviously, because that was a late request. But originally we were going straight up. You're showing the front here. If you go to the next one, you'll see the back. So originally we were going straight up, and we set it back. And in fact set back where the terrace starts. From the back face of the building as well, and made it opaque. So I do feel that there's not going to be, an enormous amount of view, nor do I feel respectfully to people's concerns that workers are going to be spending their time, staring out the windows at them. It's a setback. It should be a usable setback. It makes sense to be able to walk out there to get some fresh air, and but I don't feel that people's privacy is going to be impacted in the way that their concern is.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Any comments? Do we have a motion? Yes, Joanne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I acknowledge the comments from the neighbors with respect to the closeness, but the buildings are close already. It is certainly more massing towards the rear of the property than is there now. I think, in my opinion, with the amendments that were made with the discussions with planning with respect to stepping in at the rear and less penetration of the angular plane, I think that this proposal, I believe, is appropriate, and I can support this application. And if my colleagues have no further comment, I would be prepared to move a motion to approve the application subject to the conditions outlined in the planning report.
All right, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Peter? All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you. Number 8, 49 Strathearn Road. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear first level terrace. With this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant, and we have correspondence from Toronto and Region Conservation Authority. Ian McLaren.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Can we have your
My
name
name is
and
Ian.
address?
Ian McLaren, 247 Sterling Road. I am the architect and agent for the owner.
All right. So I don't believe we need a presentation. Do you have anything to say, sir, before I take it into committee?
Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Panel, any questions or comments, or do we have a motion? Yes, Nimrod.
Yeah, there is only one variance before us, and I believe it's minor in nature, and it really reflects the configuration, the slope issue at the rear of the property, and I believe this is minor. I would move approval with no conditions.
Do we have a seconder? Yes, Aaron. Okay. All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you. Number 9, 87 Dover Court Road. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing building by constructing a rear third-story addition with a rear third-story balcony. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. And Daniel Allen, please.
Yes. My name is Daniel Allen. My address is 66 Motor Avenue in Brampton, and I'm the agent for the application.
Okay. I don't think, sir, we need a presentation. Do you have anything to say before I take it into committee?
No. Everything is just basically these two comments, just minor in nature. So that's fine.
Thank you. Panel, do you have any questions, comments, or do we have a motion? Peter.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is a very reasonable application, and I think the additional density that's being sought is well arranged on the site, and I can see no negative impacts coming from that. So I move to approve the application with no conditions.
All right, seconder. Aaron, all in favor? You have your approval. Thank you, sir. Number 10. $3450 South Porch Street. Purpose of this application is to alter the redevelopment plan for 26 and 29-story residential buildings and 15 townhouses approved under site-specific zoning bylaw number 264/2013 by reducing the number of required parking spaces and eliminating certain road improvement requirements that are no longer required. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from planning, a report from transportation services, an opposition from 1 Ridley Avenue, 45 and 65 Southport, and another from 1 Ripley Avenue. Mr. Fleischer?
Good morning, sir. My name is Zachary Fleischer. My address is 333 Bay Street, Toronto, Suite 3400, and I'm appearing as agent on behalf of the owner, Southport Street Development Corporation.
Okay, so could you give us a presentation? There is quite a bit of opposition.
Thank you, sir. So for some background, the property was subject to a zoning bylaw amendment application, which was approved by council in 2013 and resulted in the enactment of site-specific bylaw 264/2013, as you stated, to permit 2 mixed-use towers of 26 and 29 stories and 15 live-work townhouse units. Appendix 1 of the site-specific bylaw contains the Section 37 items to be provided by the applicant in exchange for density bonuses pursuant to a Section 37 agreement for the property. The committee previously approved variances to increase the non-residential gross floor area and permit the sharing of visitor parking with the commercial components of the development in 2015. We're now seeking 4 variances from the site-specific bylaw in 2 distinct categories, being a further reduction in parking and revisions to Appendix 1 of the site-specific bylaw containing the Section 37 provisions to dispense with improvements no longer being sought by the city. The variances do not alter the built form of the approved development and, as I will explain, meets the 4 tests. Beginning with the parking variances, we're seeking to reduce the number of parking spaces for the dwelling units from 616 to 327 and reduce the number of parking spaces reserved exclusively for residential visitors from 131 to 9. It's important to note that for technical reasons, the number of visitor parking spaces in the zoning notice does not include the 56 visitor parking spaces being shared with the commercial uses. Those 56 additional spaces will be available to visitors outside of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is when visitor spaces are most often used, for an effective total of 65 visitor parking spaces, or 0.1 per unit, which is well above the 9 that's in the zoning notice. Since being enacted, the parking standards in the site-specific bylaw are outdated and result in an oversupply of parking required to serve residents and guests. Those outdated parking standards would work contrary to the city's objectives in the official plan regarding transportation demand management and encouraging transit and active forms of transportation. And to that end, in December, City Council passed a zoning bylaw amendment to remove most parking minimums citywide. I would also note that the number of bicycle parking spaces proposed is 690, which is well in excess of the 416 required by the site-specific bylaw, and also exceeds the recommended amount in the Toronto Green Standard. In addition, the property is very well served by transit, with TTC bus route 77 being right outside, and it's within walking distance to TTC streetcar route 501, with easy access to downtown. The LEA transportation report included with this application includes an analysis of parking demand in similar buildings in the vicinity and concludes that the reduction of parking supply is appropriate, will continue to provide an adequate amount of parking, and avoid an oversupply contrary to the official plan's objectives to reduce auto dependence and encourage other forms of transportation. I'd also note that transportation staff have taken the relatively exceptional step of supporting the variance application. Typically, if staff are satisfied, they will say nothing, but in this case, staff have come out explicitly in support of the parking reduction. As it relates to the Section 37 variances, which are strictly technical variances, the city is no longer seeking certain improvements to the South Kingsway and Ormskirk intersection required by Appendix 1 of the site-specific bylaw and the Section 37 agreement. City planning staff prepared 2 reports in support of the Section 37 variances, one of which was adopted by City Council, and both transportation staff, planning staff, and our client's transportation consultants have agreed through the processing of our client's site plan applications that these improvements are no longer necessary or appropriate. The request here is simply to implement the opinion of the city's professional transportation staff, our client's transportation consultants, and in particular, the will of City Council to dispense with those improvements now deemed unnecessary. Again, those variances are purely technical, but city staff have insisted that they are required given that the items are included in the enacted and enforced site-specific bylaw contained in Appendix 1 in order to actually dispense with those Section 37 items no longer being sought. Staff have requested that the approval of variances 3 and 4 be conditional on our client entering into an amending Section 37 agreement, which we are content with. We respectfully request that the committee prefer the opinions of the city's professional transportation and planning experts and those of our client's consultants over the anecdotal concerns of nearby residents. This application is made with the express support of staff and of council. It meets the 4 tests, being that it maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan, is appropriate and desirable, and minor in that it has no impact, and we respectfully request that it be approved by the committee. That is all I had intended to say, subject to any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Mr. Flesher, at what stage is the construction?
Construction has not begun yet. The site plan applications were submitted in 2018, and our clients are requesting these variances and hope to be in a position to pull permits as soon as it's given final site plan approval.
All right, thank you. Panel, any questions? Okay. Leslie Ford?
Hi, Leslie. You've been unmuted.
Not there? Can you move on to the next one?
Yeah. To you, Mr. Chair. Shirley and Adam won't be speaking.
Okay, the next one, Ellie Kagan, or Eli?
Thank you. I think Mr. Fleischer answered most of my concerns.
Just a minute, are you Eli Kagan?
Yes, sorry, Eli Kagan, 45 Southport.
Okay, so your concerns are addressed?
That's right.
Thank you. Peter Mann?
Peter, you've been unmuted. Oh. Okay, try again. Yeah, Peter, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can or you can't?
We can, but we'd like you to speak up a little bit.
Okay, thank you. My issue
Can we
is
have
with
your
the parking.
Sir, can we have your name and address?
Peter Mann, 1 Ripley Avenue.
All right, thank you. Can you tell us what your concerns are?
My concern is with the visitor parking that is being proposed. This construction is on a secondary street, which if a bus is going by and a garbage truck is loading up, there's zero room to get by as a car. I can't imagine that a 600-unit complex is only going to have even 9 or maybe even 65 visitors at a time. And as I understand what I just heard, the 56 spaces are only available during the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. period, which suggests that we only have visitors at night. Well, I'm here to tell you, visitors visit 7/24. So I'm concerned that a chaotic traffic situation on the secondary roads is going to get far worse because people will want a place to park. There's no public parking within a half a kilometer, and this is really an older residential neighborhood. So the visitors are going to be old people who are probably not going to be jumping on transit and trying to park to visit their sons and daughters and grandchildren. I think it's ludicrous.
Okay.
I also think that 1 day's notice to file an objection from the time this amendment was put out is absolutely also ridiculous, and perhaps an effort on the part of the submitting party to obscure their zoning changes that they need to move forward with this project. The left-hand turn lane on the South Kingsway, for anybody who ever drives down that street at 8 o'clock in the morning, knows that there should be one there, notwithstanding what traffic says. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Kirby?
Southport Street. Oh, I apologize, I was well into it. Hello, this is Peter Kirby. My address is 45 Southport Street, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Board of Directors of 45 and 65 Southport Street. We have had the opportunity in the interim to address our concerns directly with the proponent here, and we believe they've satisfied our concerns. So respectfully, we'd like to withdraw our complaint and our opposition. We are in support of the application as it stands.
Right. Thank you, sir. Aliki Mashi.
I didn't ask her.
Aliki, you've been unmuted.
Hello, Aliki Mashi here from 24 Southport Street. I have the same concerns as the gentleman from Ripley Avenue. This is a secondary street. We have, of course, public transit. We have garbage trucks, delivery trucks coming to our street. It's very difficult. It's become very difficult to drive along there. In addition, the same comment for visitor parking. Where are these people going to park? There is no parking on the street. They have to try to accommodate some sort of indoor parking for visitors. Otherwise, people are going to overflow onto the street. So that's what I have to say about that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Fleischer? Oh,
Yes,
just
sir.
a minute.
Thank you.
Just a minute. Do we have Leslie Ford?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're currently trying to call her. If you could just bear with us.
Okay, so just hang on, Mr. Fleischer. We have another speaker we hadn't been able to get a hold of. We're trying to get a hold of her or him.
Leslie, you've been unmuted. You might have to unmute yourself on your own device as well. Through you, Mr. Chair, we can't get a hold of her.
Okay, Mr. Fleischer?
Thank you, sir. I'll just briefly respond to the concerns of the objectors, and I'll be very brief. As stated, the LEA transportation report submitted by the applicant, in addition to the opinions of the city's transportation department, conclude that the amount of parking provided is sufficient and will not result in any adverse traffic impact. LEA has analyzed parking demand in similar buildings in the vicinity and concluded that the amount of parking is adequate. And it's been mentioned that there's traffic issues on Southport anecdotally from residents. And firstly, there's no parking on Southport Street and therefore no basis for the concerns regarding visitors parking on the street and taking up spots. And with respect to congestion and that, there's a lot of traffic on the street, the variances will actually serve to reduce traffic as we're trying to reduce auto dependence and implement transportation demand management measures that will encourage active forms of transportation such as biking or some of the numerous transit options such as the bus route and streetcar route there. And that's all I intended to say. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Any questions, panel? Yes, Nimrod?
So I just like to get a clarification. How many units are in the two residential buildings?
So there's 2 residential buildings and there's also 15 live-work townhouse units, as you can see on the screen in the top left, and the total amount of units is 656.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand then, people who live in condo buildings, they've got visitors coming during the day, some, and there's also delivery people and service people who are coming to the individual units to do repairs or and so on. Where are those people going to park during the daytime if there's only 9 visitor spaces for over 600 units? I don't understand how that's going to work.
Thank you, sir. So LEA has done the analysis on parking demand and visitor parking demand in similar buildings, and it's concluded that the 9 spaces, at least during the daytime, is sufficient, and there are other commercial parking spaces there. And as it relates to, people coming, usually the visitors typically come, at night if they're staying over, or, early in the morning. And so again, LEA as well as transportation staff have concluded that there's really no issue. While 9 seems like a low number, the amount of residential visitor parking, including those commercial spots, is 0.1 per unit, which is really in line with industry standards. As well, if there's transportation people, people doing repairs on units, LEA certainly believes that the 9 spots will be sufficient. It's not like you're going to have 10% of units always requiring repairs all the time. And again, there are also those retail and other commercial spaces that are marked that they're not to be used by visitors between 7 and 7, but there's certainly 56 of those spaces plus an additional 23 reserved exclusively for the commercial users of the site.
Joanne, you had a question?
Yeah, so just further to what was just said, so during the daytime, is there a prohibition against anybody using the commercial spaces, or is it just signage, or is there will there be signage?
Yes, that's right. There will be signage reserving those 56 spaces for commercial users between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. But again, it's really just signage. In terms of overflow, I mean, I'm sure people will likely use those spaces if there are no visitor spaces, although we don't believe that's very likely given the typical demand for visitor spaces during the day. And as well, there's loading spaces available for the building too, in terms of, deliveries and other things that, might be assumed to use the visitor spaces, but we'll be using those loading spaces instead.
So for the live work units, are they entitled to use the commercial spaces?
So they're not. So that's the commercial spaces are for the use of visitors not visitors. Sorry, I use that nomenclature, but for people going and using the commercial elements of the development, and the retail for parking and sort of quick use.
So if there are clients of the live work townhouses, they would be parking in the visitors spots? That would be where they would be required to park?
That's right. And I believe that there's dedicated spots for them above grade as well for those workspaces, as you can see.
Okay, so there is so there's dedicated spaces for those units for their clients?
I believe so, and of course as well, like how the parking spaces are all analyzed. But you can see in the top right-hand corner here, there's like a fairly large parking lot that's to be used by commercial visitors. And again, if there's visitors to those live work units, there's several spaces right outside, and certainly spaces below grade that can be used.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions, comments, or do we have a motion? Yes, Aaron.
Hi. In fact, I have been having this question for a while. I noticed in your parking plans, you have 3 levels of underground parking, and majority of the space are lockers. So, and then I'm looking at your parking rationale report. I'm not sure if the staff can open that document. So can you show us how you justify the visiting parking to 9, please?
Yes, sir. So if we can turn to page 6, it contains a paragraph there. Page 6.
I think it's the document called Parking Rationale.
Yeah, and it's the revised report that's dated June the 9th. As there were 2 transportation reports submitted, but
not the staff report, but the E4B. Rationale.
That one, yeah, June 9th. Okay, great. Yeah, if we can go to page 6 of that report. it states that the retail parking is recommended at the minimum of 1 space per 100 meters for 23, and then with the sharing of residential visitor and retail parking, 56 will be available to be shared by both uses to take advantage of differing peak demand periods and optimize parking for both uses and make really efficient use of resources. And then
so you chose the recommended minimum size to come up with it.
Right. And then and it's determined there that the 9 spaces are sufficient for only visitor parking. And again, like the site has very good access to transit. It's not anticipated, and in fact, the reason that there's a low amount of visitor parking spaces to some degree is to reduce auto dependence and increase reliance on active forms of transportation, public transportation. So the fact that there are 9 parking spaces, the more parking, you'll have some level of induced demand there as well. Here you've got great access to transit through the streetcar line, through the bus routes, and really it's anticipated, and again, through an analysis of similar developments of the vicinity and the analysis of the traffic impacts generated by those developments, really there's a large emphasis in the official plan on transportation demand management. And that's to some degree what's occurring here with 9 visitor parking spaces that are sufficient to service the development. And really the idea is that most of the visitors to this development are going to be arriving via transit or via bike. Again, there's 690 bicycle parking spaces.
Thank you for that. And then can you go to the transportation staff report? Because this is something I'm not 100% sure. If you go to the staff report, which is F2, if you go down to the second last page, recommendation by our colleagues, transportation. So item 4A. So it basically says, in addition to the provision of visitor and commercial parking above minimum 9 parking of exclusive use of visitors shall be provided. So I guess technically speaking, if we approve this application, can this whole document be attached to as a condition? Because it looks like it is. This 9 visitor parking in addition to what you have to do on top of the ratio that was listed in the staff report. So that's page 5 of the staff report, second last page, I would say. And then if you read based on the foregoing, that's right. It says we have no objection, so which is great. I just want to be sure that what we are approving makes sense and in line with the writings here. So you see, you have to meet those parking ratio, and on top of that, you have to provide extra 9 parking space for visitor parking. And then you have chose to waive the zoning notice. So this is basically a variance developed by yourself. So that basically comes to, I don't know if this is a question, but I feel like your understanding of this staff report and the variance we are looking at is not exactly the same. You might end up requiring more parkings than 9, because this 9 is on top of what you have to do for the ratios that you have developed through your parking studies.
Right. I mean, I think in terms of the like a condition issue with the minimum parking ratios is those are rounded, and again, there's no waiver for the parking variances per zoning notice. The items are all there as proposed for the actual number of parking spaces. I mean, whether you add a condition in relating to the 56 spaces, although those 56 spaces are illustrated in the 2015 committee decision, like those have to be provided regardless. The 9 spaces is really more of a, it's almost as if it's a technicality. We went back and forth with the zoning examiner on it. We wanted to go and have the variance indicate those 56 spaces to ensure there was a sufficient number outside of the peak, along the peak period.
Right. So I just hope that you are aware of this. It will become a condition that you have chose to submit a zoning review waiver And here, by my understanding, you are not just providing 9 parkings, you have to provide more than this 9 visitor parking.
Right. So in terms of variances 1 and 2, we did receive a zoning notice, which specifically indicates the number of residential parking spaces for the dwelling units and the 9 for the exclusive visitor parking spaces. The zoning waiver only really relates to the Section 37 variances, which the zoning examiner didn't want to put in because it wasn't technically related to the plans. They're much more technical variances being requested by council. But so the 2 parking variances are as illustrated by the zoning examiner and just indicate the number of parking spaces. But in any event, and I've discussed this with the examiner as well, those 56 spaces should be shared between the commercial uses and the residential visitors must be provided.
Right, okay, thank you. So I guess if my other colleagues have no comments, I will propose to approve this application because it's been carefully studied by the city staff. I can see the details involved, but this transportation staff report has to be attached to the approval. That's my motion.
So you're making, that's your motion, Aaron?
Yes, I am making a motion to approve subject to follow this transportation staff report in terms of the parking calculation.
Okay. Okay, the only other comment I would add with respect to, and Aaron has spoken on this, but with respect to variance 3 and 4, I would be relying on the information that's provided in the planning report that was prepared to council and the adoption of that by council, and we haven't heard any other submissions contrary to suggesting that those wouldn't be appropriate. I have some concerns with respect to the parking, but will accept the transportation study and the parking study and the suggestions or the conditions of transportation. I agree with my colleague Aaron with respect to the interpretation of those conditions, and it's 9 dedicated, but there will be a requirement for others related to that.
So
I would second that.
All right, so I had a note with respect to transportation 7 conditions. Have you incorporated that, Aaron, or am I wrong about transportation requiring 7 conditions?
Yes, those are the 7 conditions on that second last page in that report.
Oh, okay.
But I want to not just the 7 points, but the whole document, just in case.
Okay, thank you. All right, Nimrod?
I just wanted to provide some comments. I do have concerns with variance number 2 dealing with the number of visitor parking spaces. I just don't think it's going to be realistic for over 600 units to have only 9 visitor parking spaces. And it's just irrespective of the various transportation studies, I don't think it's realistic at all. And I don't believe that that reduction is appropriate or minor.
Okay, so we have a motion. Joanne, you seconded the motion, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
With those conditions attached.
Yes, all right. All in favor of the motion? All right, and Nimrod, you're opposed to the motion? Okay, you have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number
Thank you,
11,
sir.
78 Hilton Avenue. And purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2.5-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear 2-story addition, a rear 3rd-story addition, and a rear deck of each floor. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from Urban Forestry, support from John Sewell at 76A Hilton Avenue, and a form letter from 80, in support from 80 Hilton. And Franco Spagnolo.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. My name is Franco Spagnolo from Studio Spagnolo Inc. at 911 Chippenham Drive, Mississauga.
Okay. I don't, sir, think that we need a presentation from you. Do you have anything you want to say before I take it to panel?
Just quickly that we have letters of support, as you mentioned, from both the immediate neighbors on the north and south side. We've done some research requests, and the FSI variance is is very common in the area, and this committee has approved variances from 80% all the way up to 115%. And we just believe that these variances are minor in nature. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
All right, thank you. Panel, do you have any questions? Joanne?
Just one. If the committee were inclined to approve this, would you be amenable to a condition that would tie it to Plan A7 to show that the privacy screening that you're proposing?
Yes, that's exactly what we showed that on the plans, because the owner does want some privacy as well when it comes to the rear decks. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any further? So, Joanne, do you have a motion?
If my colleagues have no further comments, I'd like to move a motion to approve the application. I believe that the variances as requested are indeed minor and appropriate. I would approve the application subject to the condition that it be tied to drawing A7 with respect to the screening on the sides of the proposed rear deck.
All right. Also, I believe conditions, forestry conditions 1
Oh,
and 2.
forestry, sorry. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Forestry 1 and 2.
All right, do we have a seconder? Peter? All right, all in favor? Have your approval, thank you. Number 12, 6 Mount Joy Avenue. And the purpose of this application is to alter the existing building by enclosing the front porch and constructing a rear 2-story addition, a rear 1-story addition, a rear basement walkout, a rear ground floor deck, and a rear 2nd-story balcony. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from community planning, and 6 form letters in support. Rob Huot.
Good morning. My name is Rob Hulot. I'm with Susan Spiegel Architect, and I'm the agent for the owners. We've received the planning report, and there's 2 recommendations that they make, and we're fully in agreement with those 2 recommendations of limiting the front yard setback to 1 story and the installation of a privacy screen on the 2nd floor deck.
Okay. Panel, do you have any questions, comments, or do we have a motion? Peter.
Thanks, Chair. I think what's being proposed is very reasonable and restrained, and I think that the impacts of these variances on the neighbors will be mostly benign. So I would then move approval of this application subject to the 2 community planning conditions.
Do we have a seconder? Yes, Joanne, all in favor? You have your approval, thank you. Number 13, 11 Glebe Road East. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2-story detached dwelling by constructing a front integral garage and covered porch, a rear 2-story addition with a ground floor deck, and a partial 3rd-story addition with a rear balcony. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and a report from Development and Planning Transportation Services. Mr. Perez.
Hello, good morning, Chairman and committee members. I'm Eddie Perez. I'm here on behalf of the owners, and we're proposing, as you said, an addition and integrated garages. Integrated garages are very common in the area. I've attached a thing with the pictures showing integrated garages, and the neighbor next door also has a integrated garage. And we have a positive slope going to the street. It's 2%. So it's not sloping towards the house. It's a positive slope. And we're just slightly under on the green space at the front. And I believe that our variances are minor. If you want me to go over each one, I can. But I believe that they're minor in nature.
Perhaps, Mr. Perez, you could address the transportation report, which appears to be against your application.
Yeah, they're saying it's a below grade garage, but it's not a below grade garage. Because on the sides the soil is higher, but the garage is sloping towards the sidewalk. It's 2% slope. You can see on the site plan, if you put it up, there's a 2% slope towards the front. And they are very common in the area, which I've attached a thing with a whole bunch of pictures of houses in the street, which have integrated garages. So I feel that it's not warrant what they're saying, because it is common in the area and it is appropriate for the area. It's not out of character, and I feel that it meets the 4 tests.
Okay, panel, do you have any questions? Yes, Joanne?
Just further to the transportation report, I think they're speaking about that there's access to a shared driveway and parking at the rear. Is there concerns? Can you address that?
Yeah, the driveway is very narrow, and the owner doesn't want to go back with a car on that narrow driveway, so he prefers to put an integrated garage so he doesn't have to go back. But the driveway will not be impacted in any way for the neighbor, so the neighbor can continue to use it as it's always been used. But he prefers not to have parking at the back, because it's very hard to go back there. If you see it, it's a very narrow, long driveway, and it's not easy to get back there and forth. So he prefers to do it at the front. And this way you're getting a lot more green space at the back, and it's good for the environment as well.
Are there other examples where there's an integral garage with access to rear parking as well?
Well,
I see a number of integral garages, but any scenarios that are similar in terms of what transportation is speaking to?
Well, we're not asking for a curb cut or anything. We're keeping the same curb cut. I'm not sure if there's any with driveways, but the next door had a driveway as well. It's a right of way, and they have a integrated garage number 9. If you look at the survey, there's the driveway there, but they actually built the garage in the front when they did it. It's just the access is very narrow. You can see it's like 2-point-something meters. It's very narrow access. These were in the old days when people didn't have cars the size like now. So, and putting the garage at the front is appropriate for the area, because as you can see, I've attached many pictures. And also next door got approved with the integral garage as well. And planning didn't have any report or anything pertaining to this application as well.
Okay, any further questions, comments? Do we have a motion? Yes, Peter?
Thanks, Chair. I'll just start with some comments. I do share the concern that was raised by transportation staff. I think having the access to the back being retained as basically a redundant driveway, even though it's used by the neighbor, and then duplicating that paving with the front yard being largely paved, even though there are examples of it in the neighborhood, I don't see it as a desirable proposal, so I won't be supporting it.
Can I add something?
Well, we're in committee now, so I just say that I had a driveway a very narrow driveway, and it wasn't fun, particularly when I inherited a large car. So I can understand the owner's concerns. Whether it's desirable to retain the driveway and put in an integral garage, if it's part of what's on the street, I guess it's it's almost a standard practice on the street. Does anyone else have any comments on this driveway and garage? Joanne?
There are integral garages on the street, but the reason I had asked my question is I don't find any that have a circumstance where there is also a driveway with access to the rear. So that's why I'm tending to agree with the comments of transportation on this application.
But how does that, I mean, what's the difference whether there's a driveway to the rear or not? I know it's supposed to be where you take your car, but I guess what Peter said was it reduces the amount of soft landscaping. But is there any variance with respect to soft landscaping?
Yes, variance number 7.
Yeah, but it's 59.8. And the neighbor uses the driveway. The neighbor uses a driveway, so it wouldn't make any difference to the soft landscaping, I don't believe. So I don't know whether that's a legitimate concern or not. Okay, Nimrod, did you have any comments?
I understand both points of view, but it appears like there are many examples on the street of driveways at the front leading to the integral garage. And so I'm not sure how this site is different other than it's got a shared side driveway. I think the front yard landscape variance is minimal, is really minor. And so I would be prepared to support the variances.
Aaron?
Yeah, it's pretty tricky. I can tell the reason why they're doing it is to keep the tree, basically, right? If there's no tree at the front, then they can just go straight out. They're actually using an existing driveway. And from a streetscape point of view, it actually looks better. You're sharing as long as you have the right to use that driveway. And looks like you have figured out the turning radius. I mean, there's a limitation of the size of the car you have. So it's pretty, well, I usually support what the city staff report would mention, would suggest. But in this case, I think it's a very particular situation that I think by looking at the contact is actually better than going straight out to the street. So I will be able to support the proposal.
Okay. Would somebody make a motion? Okay, Nimrod?
Okay, I'll make a motion, move approval of the variances with no conditions.
All right, and seconder? Aaron? All right, all in favor of the motion? All opposed? Okay, motion's passed. You have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 14, 711 Craven Road. The purpose of the application to alter the existing building by enclosing the front porch. With this application, you have material submitted by the applicant, a report from community planning, and 11 form letters in support. Natalia Yatsenko.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just got to try and call them on their cell phone.
Okay, go ahead.
journalist, press 2.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can't get a hold of her. Could we maybe
Okay.
hold this item off?
Yeah, let's hold this item. Let's take a 5 or 10-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll try her at that time. There she is on this. I mean, she's not on the screen, but her name's on the screen.
Yeah, that's the phone number we tried to call, but there's an extension, so we can't really.
Yeah, I didn't change the other one because there was nothing wrong with them. It's just that we had a hearing where we resumed at like a weird time. We didn't have the time for that.
I am telling them to go to the community adjustment. How are you? I'm good. I'm happy about the notice form because I'm attending the hearing right now. And I do see you in the attendance, but we can't really unmute you. So I don't know if right. And we can't unmute you either. So is there a cell phone we could call you so we could put you through? Okay. Yes. 867 4390. Okay, 647-867-4390. Okay, well, call me right away, and we'll put you through with your phone. Thank you. Take care. Bye. 867-4390.
Yeah.
I'm really starting to freak out because of this like weird email.
They're designed to make you.
It is confusing, right?
Yeah, it is confusing. But
Like
well,
what
because when
kind
you
of-
know, did you notice
Oh,
that the date was like really far away from everything?
yeah.
It's like an automated mail. I think
Right.
they just like have like a date in which they have to respond to you,
Right.
and if they don't,
And so technically, if I go back to France and then re-enter the country with my current permit, like they could not deny it, right? Because it's valid until August 19th.
yeah, but it said that if you were outside of the country,
I know, but it would make sense that it's after your permit has expired and before you get the response. I think they were speaking to that like period of time.
yeah,
Because that would make sense. In that case, you can't go out because you don't have another permit.
I would definitely call.
I'm gonna call them.
Yeah, just be like, hi, can I leave the country?
Oh, worst case scenario, if I don't show that letter, like I can just doesn't make sense that the deadline they're giving is before the end of my work permit.
No.
It should be after.
Yeah, it's a miss.
So I don't know, but I'll call them to clarify.
So you're from France?
Yeah, and my work permit is expiring soon.
So we all want to go to Paris. What the hell do you want to stay here?
I don't know.
Yeah, what made you choose Toronto?
I don't know. I had never been to Toronto before moving here, so I knew I wanted to move to Canada, and then I knew I wanted to work in an English-speaking environment, so not Montreal.
They want to get away from the Parisians, not the.
Surrounded by them,
Yeah.
Didn't want to have to speak French, right?
What?
Didn't want to have to speak French.
No, that was not the goal.
Okay, did we find this person?
So we put her through with her phone. So we have her.
Good, so, but we don't have our panel back yet.
No,
I don't know
just
if
need a
it's
few more minutes.
not 10 minutes across.
It was 50% off at Loblaws this morning. I was like, all right, let's do it. I love the 50% off stickers. Just like, yeah.
There's lots of sales at my grandson goes to Loblaws on Thursday and he buys steaks 50% off or whatever.
Yeah. If you go right when they open or right when they're about to close, they just mark everything half off. And if you check out your items yourself, you can check manually things 50% off. But I can get into trouble because they verify it sometimes.
Right.
But I did once steal $40 worth of cheese.
Don't say that on
Well,
YouTube.
$40 worth of cheese that were marked at half off.
Okay.
But they weren't. But I said they were.
Well, their system should
Pick
check
that
it.
up, yeah. So my husband cooks dinner, he likes to cook, but he goes shopping the day of to get food, because he's old-fashioned Italian where everything has to be fresh.
Yeah.
So we just eat whatever is 50% off. Chicken,
That's the
meat.
menu. Well, at least you don't have to think about it.
The decision is made for you,
Exactly.
right?
Just show up and see what you have.
It's not a bad way to do it.
I love grocery shopping.
Grocery shopping is really
I
fun.
secretly love it.
I go like 3-4 times a week.
Yeah.
Like, I don't,
Some people love it,
I
and
don't
I
know.
just hate it.
I'm the same. Like, no.
like, I'll go in the mornings and just buy like fruit, and then just see what kind of fruit there is.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So you pulled it off on how you pass, and then you. Okay. Because I remember Brandon telling me. What exactly? Where do you? I guess I'll bug you about that later.
We had 10 minutes.
1 minute more.
Yeah. We could get another panel member.
Where do you?
Okay. All right, we're now on, whoops. We're now on number 14, 711 Craven Road. Natalia Yatsenko.
Yes, good afternoon, or sorry, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Natalia Yatsenko of Brothers and Associates. I'm located at 3505 York Boulevard in Hamilton, and I'm appearing as the agent for the subject property today.
Okay, so we have no opposition, and this seems relatively straightforward. Do you have any? So I don't think we need a presentation. Do you have anything to say before I take it into committee?
Just wanted to mention that we have read through the staff report and we have no comments or objections to their recommendation.
Right, thank you. All right, panel, do you have any questions, or Peter?
No questions. I have a motion.
Okay.
I think this is extremely minor, and this entire strip on Craven has enclosed porches, and this is just following that pattern. So I see no negative impacts to these minor variances and move approval subject to the planning condition.
Okay, seconder, Joanne, all in favor? You have your approval, thank you. Number 15, 91 Richie Avenue. And the purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a front first-story addition and porch. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, and we have 9 form letters in support. Brian Haygood.
Yes, that's me.
Hi, Brian. I believe you'll be joining using your video,
Yes.
so you can turn that on now. Thank you.
All right, so, Mr. Haygood, I don't think we need a presentation. Do you have anything to say before we take it into committee?
I think it's a pretty modest and straightforward application.
All right, thank you. Panel, any questions, comments? Do we have a motion? Joanne?
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a very straightforward application. I think what's being proposed is not out of character with the neighborhood. It's quite an eclectic street in terms of built forms. I think the landscaping variance is not unrepresentative of what the existing situation is on many of the properties on the street. And if my colleagues have no further comment, I would move a motion to approve the application with no conditions.
Right, do we have a seconder? Yes, Nimrod, all in favor? You have your approval, thank you. Number 16, 29 Inwood Avenue. And the purpose of this application is to convert the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling from 1 unit into 2 units by installing a secondary suite within the existing basement and constructing a 2-story rear addition with a rear ground floor deck and rear basement walkout. And with this application, we have material submitted by the applicant only. Gabriel Fain.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Gabriel Fain. I'm the agent for the application.
And your address, sir?
388 Bloor Street East.
Okay. I don't believe we need a presentation from you. Do you have anything to say before we take it into committee?
Yes, I believe this is a very minor, these are minor variances. It's a very modest addition, and the secondary suite's actually existing. It's just legalizing that secondary suite. So I believe that the proposal is very much in character with other additions in the neighborhood. I think it's quite respectful of the character of the area.
Thank you. Panel, any questions, comments, or do we have a motion? Nimrod?
I think that the variances are minor in nature. I note that there is no variance requested for rear yard setback or a building length. So I believe the variances are minor, and I would move approval with no conditions.
All right. Seconder, Peter, all in favor? All right, you have your approval. Thank you, sir. Number 17, 15 Holland Park Avenue. Purpose of this application is to construct a new 3-story. Oops, I just got a message from excuse me. Purpose of the application will construct a new three-story detached dwelling with a front integral garage and rear decks on the first and third levels. And with this application, you have material submitted by the applicant, a report from Urban Forestry, and a 5-petition letter in support. Mr. Eagleman.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members.
Yes, can we have your name and address, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, David Eagleman, 900 the East Mall, Suite 300.
Okay, and I don't think we need a presentation. Could you is there anything you want to say before we go into committee?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I will just note that we have consulted with surrounding neighbors, and there are a number of neighbors in support of the application as demonstrated by the submitted neighborhood support petition. There have been no concerns or objections expressed by planning staff or any other city department, and we are satisfied with the recommended condition number 1 from Urban Forestry.
Right, thank you. Panel, any questions, comments? Do we have a motion? Yes, Nimrod?
Just a comment initially. There are, I note, several 3-story houses on the opposite side of the street. So I think what's being proposed fits within the existing character of the street. I think the variances are minor, and I would move approval subject to urban forestry condition number 1.
Do we have a seconder? Aaron? All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 18, 160 Victor Avenue. Purpose of the application is to alter the existing building by constructing a rear 3rd-story dormer. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and 4 form letters in support. Jay Smith.
Address is 2814 Hollington Crescent, Mississauga, and I'm the agent for the application.
Okay. Mr. Smith, I don't think we need a presentation. Is there anything you want to say before I take it into committee?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Panel, any questions, comments, or do we have a motion? Yes, Joanne.
Thank you. I think this application is indeed minor, and it's an extension of an existing dormer. I don't believe there's any greater impact, and I would move to approve the application with no conditions.
All right, seconder, Peter, all in favor? Have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 19 Palisades. Purpose of the application is to construct a new 3rd-story detached dwelling with an integral garage as well as a new rear ground floor deck without basement and 3rd-story balcony. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from community planning and ravine and natural feature protection, reports from Conservation Authority and Urban Forestry, support from 16 Palisades, interest and concern from 7 Ellis Park Road, and opposition from 6 Ellis Park Road. Joseph Dom?
Yes, speaking.
Yes. Can we have your name and address for the record, sir?
Hi, my name is Joe Dome, 133 Torresdale Avenue, agent for the owner.
Okay. So, did you want to make any comments before we take it into committee?
I have a presentation prepared if you would like to hear that.
Well, can you make it short? There's no opposition, so you might touch on the highlights.
Well, we feel that within context of the existing lot constraints, we feel that this application is fairly reasonable and minor in nature. I would like to discuss that we had correspondence with planning. The only concern they had was regarding the height. We brought that down to below what their recommendation was, which was for 10.75 meters, and brought that down to 10.45 meters after the correspondence with them and with the surrounding neighbors. And the setback to the stable top of slope in the rear, 8.14 meters. Our NFP has no objections there. And the side main wall height as well is really only pertaining to a portion of the side main walls, and the remainder of the side main walls are lower at 7.4 meters with a slope roof design. And the third-story balconies, there's a lot of precedent in the area for even larger areas than that, and the way that it's incorporated within the roof in the slope roof design, we feel that that helps to mitigate any impact. Yeah, if there's any other questions that you would like to ask, I'd be happy to address it.
Yeah, I note that you've got one of those floor space indexes of 35 times the area, and you're at 94 times the area. So
Yes, that is primarily due to the stable top of slope. And if that were not the case, then it would really be sub 0.7.
Okay. So
Can the applicant just explain that FSI a little bit more detail? I didn't quite understand that.
Oh, so the FSI variance of 0.94, it's in large part inflated due to the calculation being affected by the stable top of slope. So otherwise, the FSI, if calculated with the entire lot area, would be in the sub 0.7 FSI range, which there is precedent up to even 0.8 in the surrounding area.
So does that mean that the basement is being counted as part of the FSI?
no, Nimrod, what it means is that that part down the slope towards the rear of the lot is not counted. You only count tableland. So they're not counting, they don't count the whole of the lot.
Okay.
So any further? Yes, Joanne?
I'd just like some comments on the side yard setbacks, specifically the one on the south. It is a new build. Are you going on existing foundations, or why can't that be improved?
So I'd just like to point out for that side yard setback, specifically on the south side, 0.32 meters. It is in line with other setbacks in the area, including the next street east at 14 Ellis Park Road. It has a similar side yard setback, actually, of even less, 0.28 meters. And I should mention that the adjacent neighbor to the south also has a side yard setback, which is similar to the north side we're requesting. And I would also like to point out that the proposed dwelling is stepped in as it continues to the rear. So the 0.32 meter setback, it really only applies to that small portion at the middle of the dwelling's side main wall. And at the front of the house, the setback is wider at 0.59 meters. At the rear, it's 1.05 meters.
Any further questions? Any comments? Do we have a motion? Yes, Nimrod.
Yeah, just as a comment, it would have helped me to better understand the many variances that are being proposed if there was some kind of justification report included from the applicant to the committee members. That would have just helped me better understand all the variances. I think there are a lot of variances, but overall, I think they are minor in nature, and some of them are reflective of the nature of the lot configuration and the sloping. So I think the variances are minor, and I would move approval subject to urban forestry condition number 1.
Do we have a seconder? Peter, all in favor? You have your approval, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Number 2217 Jeffrey Street. Purpose of the application to alter the existing 2.5-story detached dwelling by constructing a complete third-story addition with a rear balcony. A new primary unit will be created from combining the second and third floors in the existing secondary suites on the ground floor, and the basement will be maintained. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from Urban Forestry, and 2 form letters in support. Osren Stambuck.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Can we have your name and address, sir, for the record?
My name is Osren Stambuk. I'm at 15 Moreland Road.
Okay. Sir, before I take it into committee, do you have anything you want to say to the committee?
No, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Panel, do you have any questions? Yes, Joanne?
I'd just like an explanation for the need for the mechanical on the roof.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The need for the mechanical is because spaces are very limited, because we are accommodating a basement unit with its own mechanical space, a second floor unit, and then the third and the second and third floor are one space that need a mechanical unit. And so basically through the design, we came up with the idea to put it on the roof if committee would find that permissible.
So is there internal access to that mechanical space, or would they have to go on the roof to service?
It would be purely serviced by a professional on the roof. There wouldn't be access through inside the house in any way.
Thank you.
So they have to get up there by ladder?
However the professionals do it, that's how they would get up there. But I would note that there is a rear yard balcony that would make the ladder access quite a lot easier rather than from the ground floor.
Okay. I had a house that had to climb out the window to get to the air conditioning. Okay. Any further questions? Okay. Any comments? Do we have a motion? Yes, Peter.
Thanks. I think this is a nice project, and it's accommodating multiple units in a really sensitive way. And I think the mechanical penthouse contributes to that by adding more usable, livable space, and it's setback, so that minimizes its influence. I think the variances being requested are minor, and I think this is a desirable project. So I move approval, subject to urban forestry condition 1.
Right. Seconder. Yes, Joanne. All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the morning agenda is completed at 11:59 a.m.
Okay, we'll see everyone at 2 p.m. this afternoon. Have a good lunch.
Okay.